The reason why I don't write Christian fiction is because I am writing my characters from a lens of deconstruction. So it's not going to fit into that box. Because if you're looking for somebody that's squeaky clean and don't cuss and don't drink liquor and don't go to the club and don't know all the words to My Neck, My Back by Kaya, then you probably just reading the wrong stories. My stories really are being told through a lens of deconstruction. Now, I am not a big fan of the word deconstruction. It came after I really started to examine my foundational truths and the things that I was taught as a child. So, just backstory: I was raised in church. I grew up in church, and when I say that, I mean I was there with my dad. He unlocked the doors of the church. We was the first ones there, and we were the last to leave because he locked the doors when we left. And then on the way home from church, we would stop at the bank and deposit the money. I was there all the time. That we had something going on every day of the week almost. And so when I say I was raised in church, I was raised in church, and church became a very uh universal thing in my life. And I wasn't a kid that didn't enjoy it. Like, I love church. I love singing in the choir. I loved doing devotion. I was an usher sometimes. I was a young missionary. We was going to nursing homes, and we was going to they were taking the kids to the prison to minister, like I look, I loved it. I knew very early on that I had a call on my life to preach and to minister because I enjoyed church, and the people around me enjoyed it. Like, that was our life, that was our existence. My friends all were my church friends. And so we would be at church on Friday night, Saturday morning, Sunday, and then we would have engagements after our Sunday service at two, three other churches. I mean, it was my life, and I enjoyed it. I never thought any other way. I know that there are some kids that grew up who were told to go to church, and then when they got older, like, they was like, thumbs down, not ever doing it again, 0 out of 10 would not recommend. But look, I loved it. I love church. I never have. I remember when I got sick and couldn't go and was sad that I had to stay home because I was sick. Like, I enjoyed church. So um I had a lot of things that were my goalposts, like, were my laws for living as it relates to the Bible. And it all made sense to me when it was taught to me. It all made sense to me when I incorporated it into my life. And I lived like that, and I was fine, until I got older and I experienced church hurt. And I know people be like, you get hurt at the club, you go back. You get hurt at work, you go back. But man, it ain't nothing in the world like church hurt. Nothing in the world, because the people that inflict it upon you are the people that you trust not to ever do it. Like, when I go to the club, I expect to maybe have a kerfuffle. When I go to work, I expect that micromanaging boss gonna get on my nerves. But at the church, I just never. I did not think that it would ever happen to me, and when it happened, boy, woo, it knocked the wind out of me. But it didn't push me away from God, and it didn't push me away from the church. It just pushed me away from that church. So I found another church to go to, and it was a complete, like, opposite spectrum place. And I remember the pastor would say, you could just come here and hang out and hide out. Like, we not looking for you to stand up and say your name or any of that stuff. Just come and be healed. And I was able to just sit in there and just start learning about God and his love from a very uh rudimentary type place, like a very foundational faith that God loves you. God wants you to be whole. God doesn't want you to hurt. And that's just, it's not that I didn't know, but it's not what we were hearing, because growing up, in the 80s, church was very much so, hell bound if you don't do XYZ. If you don't live like this, if you don't believe like this, hell is your destination. And it really wasn't a gray area. It was black and white. You do this, you go to heaven. You do that, you go to hell. And so then I found myself in this ministry where it wasn't so black and white anymore. And I had been in church for years and found myself like standing up to get saved again because I wasn't even sure if I was, because I had to start to re-examine some of the things that I believed. And so it was from that lens that I started to develop these characters that I write. And starting off with Roman and Zanetta and moving into Ezekiel and Paxton, my characters are written from a place of re-examining those foundational truths that you held so dear. But when you become older, or when you start to really examine them, you find out that they really don't make sense. Like when you start to just ask questions or just pull back the layers just a little bit, like it just doesn't add up. Like I realized that some of my salvation was really just based on fear of the world and not a healthy fear of God. Because I was taught stories like, don't go to the club because it was this girl and she grew up in church, and then she decided she was going to go to the club for the first time. And that night somebody started, and she was the only one in the club that, and so I'm not going to the club because I don't want to get to the club and then go to hell, because it was only heaven and hell, right? It wasn't no in between. It wasn't grace and mercy to make mistakes, to explore life, for God to reveal who he is to you outside of your parents or your grandparents' salvation. And I think that that's what Reconstruction really is. It really is allowing yourself to be open enough for God to show you who he is, and then develop your relationship with him. Because I think that for a very long time, I coasted through Christianity on my daddy's prayers and my daddy's salvation, because I just believed how my daddy believed, and I prayed how my daddy prayed. I walked how my daddy walked, and lived how my dad lived. And so all of that just played into who I thought God was to me and for me. But then when I took a second to step back and to examine, and then to say, God, show me who you are to me, then those foundational truths really started to shift. And it really started to help me to understand that my relationship with God is my relationship with God. Are there rules and regulations? Are there some things that are black and white? Yes, but oh my goodness, there are a lot of grays. It just really is. And how you believe is how you believe. And I'm not trying to get somebody to believe any differently than what they believe, as long as you don't try to get me to believe any differently than what I believe. Right. And so when I write my characters, I write my characters from a place of a deconstructed mindset where these characters know God, love God, understand their relationship with God. So they know what God requires of them, and they know how to serve him and be in their relationship. So when you read them and you say, oh, he this and he shouldn't have done that, or oh, she's this and she shouldn't have done that, as long as they know their relationship with God, that's just not your business. The Bible tells us that we should love God and love people. But we are so often so busy judging people and telling people who they are and who they're not and what they should be and what they shouldn't be, that we miss the greatest commandment, which is just to love. I can't put you in heaven, and God don't call me on the phone when people be like, "So, what's your vote? Are they in or out of heaven?" It ain't. He don't care what I think, and so if he don't care what I think, you shouldn't either. You should just live your life to please God from the standpoint and the relationship that you have, and do not live and have a relationship with God based on fear, urban myths, unexplained King James Version scriptures, or any other thing that may be tripping you up. Learn who God is to you and for you, and then walk in that. And so that's how I write my characters. So I had somebody that left a review and they was like, this is my first read by this author, and she need to choose a lane, either because they haven't, but then it's full blown scriptures in here. Yes, because Christians have, and it's my lane. It's their lane. You a Christian, you reading the book, did you choose a lane? You're not reading a Christian fiction novel. Because I guarantee you, I have make myself very clear when I tell people that I do not write Christian fiction. And the reason why I don't write Christian fiction is because I am writing my characters from a lens of deconstruction. So it's not going to fit into that box. It's not. Because if you're looking for somebody that's squeaky clean and don't cuss and don't drink liquor and don't go to the club and don't know all the words to My Neck, My Back by Kaya, then you probably is reading the wrong stories. Because my characters know all that stuff, but they also know John 3:16. They also know Genesis 1:1. They also know the 7 tribes of Israel. The 12 tribes of Israel. They also know all of the things that they need to know to serve God and to love God. So that's what makes me unique. That's what makes my stories unique. And that's the viewpoint that I'm going to continuously come from. And the reason why is because I don't want to sell anybody a false bill of goods. I don't want anybody to think, I don't want to call my stories Christian and put these perfect people in these stories. And then you are become a Christian and you looking at these characters thinking that you have to be perfect, because you don't have to be perfect for God to love you. You don't have to be perfect to be in a relationship with God. You just don't. He did not make you perfect, and he's not expecting you to be perfect. Anybody that you look at and that you think they're perfect, they are just really good at concealing what's going on with them. From your pastor to the usher to the parking attendant, the parking ministry person, they all have struggles. They are not perfect people. And we are all just striving to live better lives. We all have things that we will do and won't do based on our relationship with God. There are some people that maybe can't drink liquor because of their relationship with God. There are some people that can't say cuss words because of their relationship with God. But then there are some that drink bourbon, that cuss you up one side and down the other, and still love Jesus. Still do. So when you pick up a Bailey West novel and you read about these people that struggle, they are afraid, they, are flawed, but God still loves them and they still love God. That's a Bailey West novel.